Strategy consultant Dikbo Oyewale. Dikbo, good morning. First of all, I don't know, as an average Nigerian, if it's really a good morning for you right now. Oh. I know you have seen the video, Nigerians, feeling the frustration of Nigerians, but how has it been for you getting the redesigned notes or even the old notes?
It's been very difficult, and a lot of us asking a lot of questions, because I heard your previous conversation earlier asking if the CBN, what their plan was. And I'll want to answer one of your questions that you asked with the new directive that it should be paid over the counter. There was an initial directive that new notes should be paid over the counter.
Shouldn't be paid?
Yes, that it should only be paid through the ATMs. Now, it was under the guise of being able to monitor, according to them, how the notes were going to be dispensed, because per bank and per branch, there are serial numbers. So if you see maybe people selling the Naira notes, you can always track it. That was the excuse for that. So that's why they then came out with another directive saying that it should be paid over the counter. But either it's being paid over the counter or it's just the ATMs. We've had to ask a lot of questions saying, did they bother to stress test this entire process in the first place? Because like Mike said earlier, the CBN has been around for a very long time. Would have expected that there's been a lot of experience to have gone into play with this particular conversation. And for whatever reason, either it's politically motivated or not, they need to understand that the people bearing the brunt of this are the regular Nigerians. We've seen videos, people throwing fists in banks, people stripping naked in banks, people having to resort to relieving themselves of their human dignity to have access to their own hard-earned money. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You're saying you have released enough cash. Now, did they account for this particular scenario that I'm going to draw up now? Now, up until now, maybe you had 13,000 Naira cash at home, and then you only had to go to the ATM to withdraw 17,000 to have 30,000. But per the directive, you've had to go and deposit that 13,000, which is the old notes, but having to go to the ATM to get full 30,000 at once. Now, this is happening in multiples, and it is putting a lot of pressure on the banks. The question is, how much volume of money have you given to the banks? Yes, we have seen cases of sabotage, but the question is, in terms of the volume you have released, in terms of saying this is the percentage of the level of the sabotage, can you compare it to the volume that you have released to the banks? Because I don't see a place where a lot of banks are hoarding cash. Because right now, there was even a video I saw yesterday, I don't know which of the banks it was, where people literally were attacking the banking staff as they were about to leave the premises of the bank, that they even tore out the gate. That is where we're getting to. Because people are frustrated, people are stranded. We've been battling fuel crisis for over 2 months now, with no end in sight. Now, people have left fuel queues to go and join ATM queues where they've been beating themselves as well. Before they enter the banking hall, because they said they should be paying them over the counter, they've been beating themselves at the ATM queues for days now. Where are we going with this entire process? It has grounded a lot of businesses practices to a halt. Because now you're saying, okay, you must use ATM, you must go cashless. Banking apps have also been under a lot of pressure. A lot of banking apps before now haven't been top-notch. Now they're under a lot of pressure and they're practically been crashing. For some weeks now, for some days now, certain banks have had their apps practically non-functional. People have gone to restaurants, have been praying to God that they won't have to wash plates when they are done eating so that they can pay for the food they ate. I saw a couple of pictures online where somebody said he had a flat tire because he didn't have cash on him. He couldn't have it fixed. You do transfers, it doesn't go. Is your organizer going to have POS? These are the things, these are the issues. And we have said this time and time again. We're not saying don't do cashless policy, right? But we're saying if a policy is good, it works everywhere else. You need to come to your own clients to see how you can make it work for your own peculiar circumstance. I'm not going to say, okay, because Mike looks good in a suit, I look good in a suit, but he looks better around the chest area, without me accounting for the fact that he has a flatter tummy than me. Who am I deceiving? We need to work with the parameters on ground and say that these are the peculiarities, that surround our own society, our own economy, our
But
own
one would have
environment.
expected that that is what the CBN would have done, having been on the ground over time.
Over time, that's what we expected. Because, I mean, this thing is something that I expected that simple data analysis will have helped to solve. And I'll give you a quick breakdown now. Now, this is the data you could have collected. Now, maybe in the last 18 months, before you said you wanted to redesign or mop up cash or whatever excuse you were giving, get data. How much do people withdraw over the counter? How much do people get from ATMs? How much banks issue POSs to POS terminals
Operators, yeah.
to businesses? How much transactions go on it? All these OP and other guys get data from them. You don't need to tell them you want to redesign Naira. Just say you are doing KYC audits. It's as simple as that. Because, I mean, if you call the bank CEOs and tell them what to redesign in Naira and all of that, give us data, I'm sure some of them will have reasons to tell you, oh, don't do it and all of that. So you don't need to tell them. You're the regulatory body anyway. Because one thing that I know that the CBN takes very seriously with the banks is KYC. They take the data of their customers very seriously. So just tell them, it's a KYC audit, we need all these numbers. Juxtapose it against each bank, each branch per state. Let these numbers overlap. It will give you an average of what we need in the system per time. I gave a scenario earlier where I said, I mean, maybe you had 13,000 Naira cash on you before. You only have to go to the ATM to withdraw 17,000. Now you have to go to the ATM to go and withdraw the whole 30,000 now and more. Which now you can't even withdraw more than 20,000.
Yeah.
So you have people having to maybe transfer. I have to transfer to you because I need to get something in the market. I'm able to withdraw 20,000. I need 35,000. I withdraw another. I send 20,000 to you. You help me withdraw another 20,000, and you're having to make people do all of that, all in the name of what? Bank staff, they are stressed. They are under a lot of pressure. They are saying CBN isn't giving them enough cash to go around. So what are we really doing? We need to get serious about this thing. It doesn't make any sense because up until now or before now, you've been complaining about the economy, how things have been. Now you're grinding the economy practices to a halt. Is that the objective?
But the finance minister says it is the price we have to pay to make the economy healthy and take the economy to where it's supposed to be. That's
not this bad. That's what we're saying. So we've discussed this cashless policy time and time again. And we've said you have to ease into it. It's not something you just dump on people, where we have a system where a lot of people are a lot of transactions are largely cash dependent. That's just the reality of things. You can't just say, okay, you are just mopping up things and then you're just releasing droplets for people to be managing for the sake of what? It doesn't work. You have to ease these things out. You want to withdraw one currency for the other or one old note for the new one. It takes time. Ease these things out of the system. You don't put everybody under pressure saying that, okay, if you do this within 3 months, you're saying you're giving 2 weeks extension or how much extension. Okay, it is still valid. And what we're getting to see is every other day, because of maybe political pressure and social pressure, different directives are coming out from CBN practically every day now. So the question is, what was the initial thinking to start with? That's why I said, did they bother to stress test any of these things and say, okay, you know what, maybe in the first couple of weeks, these are the implications. Then we see how we can lift it and add this particular addendum to it and see how we can put this particular restriction. Can we lift this one later with this particular response? That is how things are done.
But the point there is, let us even look at it ultimately with the configuration of Nigeria. Because our constitution has said that the same person in Sokoto has the same rights as somebody in Akwa Ibom.
Yes.
Everybody, so long as you are a citizen and you're in this country, you have access to the same kind of standard of rights. Now, when it comes to this issue of cashlessness, is Nigeria really ripe for this cashlessness, considering the terrain, considering the level of literacy, considering the enlightenment, the penetration of enlightenment or digital or whatever, or even phone access as a case? Our makeup as a country, as a nation, are we really ripe for a cashless policy?
At this time, no. And I'm not going to say not yet. I'll just say at this time, no. Which was what I was alluding to earlier. But I'll take us back to a couple of years ago when we had to do the ATM adoption. If you remember, initially people were like, I don't want to use the card, and then we had to go to the counter, and then directives came that maybe if you want to withdraw anything less than maybe 5 or 10,000, go to the ATM. And then the narrative, which is the next point I'm about to make, became the ATM is more convenient for you instead of going to the banking hall. You need to craft a narrative around a policy. You need to craft a narrative around a strategy when you want to execute it. That is how you get a buy-in from the people at the receiving end of it. True, you are the regulatory body. You don't just say, okay, they will do whatever we tell them to do. If you have a problem with executing a strategy, can you say that you have done a good job putting one together? No. You have just wasted time and resources putting something together, which I would not call a strategy, because if it doesn't work, then it's really not a strategy. There's no such thing as a bad strategy. It's just not a strategy if it doesn't work.
Right.
So that's what we're saying. So we need to understand that right now, it doesn't work. Because like I said, you have, how many vulcanizers are going to be carrying POS around? So you're telling me that you want to buy pepper, they use POS. You want to buy fish, they use POS. You want to buy chicken, they use POS.
Or you
want to buy Maggi, you do transfer. You go to Balogun markets today. There are certain spots in Balogun market, they are dead zones. You cannot have phone network, let alone say you want to transfer, or ATM, or POS, or you put your
that's part of the heart of Lagos.
That's part of the heart of Lagos. That's a major commercial hub. You go in there, you give them your ATM, you have to escort it maybe to 2 streets after, and then he's going about like this, looking for network so the thing can work, or you go to the, you go to the plaza, an ATM. Or you go to an ATM because you don't want to be robbed of your money, you don't want to carry cash with you, you go to the end of the plaza, seeing how the transfer can go, and then you're prancing around with your phone. A lot of time has gone. And this is a place where a lot of people are aware about using bank apps, USSD, POS. But because of the peculiarity of that location, it doesn't work. How much more remote areas? So are we saying they're going to be disenfranchised? Are we saying they don't have a right to commerce? Is that what we're saying? Because today, I can bet you that there are certain parts of Nigeria that certain people don't even know anything about this Naira redesign.
Absolutely.
Whatever we're talking about now. They have no clue whatsoever. So the question is, how much of a job have you done in terms of awareness and seeing the processes you can put in place to ensure that this thing works? Because we need to understand that aside from existing infrastructure, you also need to put some work in place to see that this process goes seamless. The question is, okay, will it work in 3 months? Will it work in 6 months? What is the overall objective? We need to mop up this cash. Okay, we account for these people in these particular areas. I'll give this particular example. Do you know that, for example, on weekends and public holidays, the ATMs in areas like Allen and Okwebi are not as busy as the ones on CMD Road? The same Lagos that we're in.
Why though?
Because they are mostly commercial areas at Allen and Okwebi.
And people leave those areas.
People leave those areas weekdays. So except maybe you are driving through there and then you just park. Then you use the ATM. Unlike CMD Road, you have Shanisha, you have Magodo, you have Ikosi, you have Ketu, you have Ikorodu. You have all of these locations, residential areas. So people just come out of their house, pop by to the nearest ATM, withdraw cash. So this is within the same Lagos. So you don't have the same demands.
Right, yeah.
Do you understand where I'm going with
Yes,
this? So
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you don't have the same demands on the ATM in this same location, in this same state, within how many kilometers apart?
Exactly.
So we're talking about, you were not talking about Sokoto and Akwa Ibom. So you see the intricacies behind this entire conversation. So that's why we're saying, did they put together any data? Was there any data involved in making this decision?
But from what you're saying, it seems there wasn't.
Absolutely none. Absolutely none. Because if there was, I would like to see what those data was about, what the variables were, what the data sets
What the
were,
indicators were.
and what the conclusion was. Because for me, it doesn't show that there was any, I think it was just decisions were made on a whim. Said, okay, I think, 3 months, okay, 3 months, is 3 months good? 3 months have it. Okay. Because I don't, so, because if you have data will tell you that this is the amount of time it will take for the 30,000 Naira example I made earlier, for this person to be made whole again with what she has, with the typical cash she has on hand every end of the month. This is what it will mean for her to be made whole. Maybe 10,000 every other day, and not just the 20,000 at once, or not just 30,000 at once. Okay, so what does that mean? Accounting for somebody that lives maybe around Ikeja, and somebody that lives in Magodo, or banks that are in Ikeja and Magodo. The pressure isn't the same, let alone the ones that, because the pressure isn't the same for the ones on CMD and the ones at Ikorodu. It's not the same.
Yeah.
So these are the cases you need to look at. Say that, okay, so how do we go about it? We space it out and we make sure that every single person is captured in this particular process. That is how to get things done if we are serious about getting it done with good intent.
So you say that the 3 months time frame that the bank gave was not enough, because there's also the aspect of Nigerians liking the fire brigade approach. When we are getting close to the deadline, we'll jump. That is when we remember we are supposed to do one thing or the yes.
Okay, yes. So I was going to touch on that as well. One, the 3 months was never realistic. And two, talking about the fire brigade approach, you remember there's something I always say on this platform and others, the law of precedence. Is it the fault of the average Nigerian that practically every system of government that we have, NIN, PVC, BVN, CBN, this is the deadline, we're not going to move it, this is this, that is that, without putting the necessary processes in place. And then when it is a week to the deadline, there's a lot of social pressure, there's a lot of pressure placed on the facilities, on the infrastructure that was already insufficient. And then they say, okay, you know what, we're going to extend it. SIM registration. Do you remember that as well? So it has become a culture. We have to face facts. Yes, is it right to wait till the last minute? No, it isn't. But we also need to understand that per law of precedence, it has become part of our culture.
And so that should have been factored in.
So in the first place, this is it. Either you gave Nigerians 9 months or 3 months. We're still going to have the fire brigade. However,
last minute rush.
However, at 9 months, how much ground would you have covered? In those 9 months or 6 months? In 9 months, you would have learned lessons by month 3 that we are now, and put certain things in place. By month 6, you would have learned more lessons for the final lap. That's how to do things. So you're saying that, okay, we are not getting enough traction, we're not getting enough buying, enough pull by month 5. Do we need more awareness? Do we need to carry the banks along to say that, okay, you know what, CBN is not even going to finance any media, whatever, regarding this thing again. You two are involved. Banks, you used to go and be doing adverts, go and be doing social media, everything. Because now it's on your table. Because they are the ones that are directly involved with all of these videos you are seeing. Did you see anybody go to CBN or to go and strip naked? Did they go and pull?
They don't know where. They don't know where it is.
They don't know the location of CBN.
If they know the location, they will go there. Trust me, Nigerians will go there.
Will go there and enter the office and go and strip naked and sit down on counter. It's the commercial banks that have that headache.
No, they can stand outside and protest.
Oh yes, so that may happen. But my point is this: that if at some point you're saying the commercial banks will have to work together, because in the end you are at the front end of this thing. When there's a problem, you are the ones that are going to come to first before they come to us. You won't see it in front of CBN office.
All right. As we look at it, the other side, beyond the financial part of things, I wonder what implication will this have on the election? Because that's another thing generally.
Yes.
From the statements of the CBN and even government, they were trying to use this election period to cash in on this and then have this done. But the way it is turning out, what implication would it have, or are you seeing that it will have on the election process?
Well, I think adding to the frustration of the people being carried from the whole fuel scarcity and then having to do Naira scarcity and every other scarcity that we're facing right now, it's difficult to say, honestly. It's difficult to say because on one hand, it could lead to a lot of voter apathy. On the other hand, it may lead to a lot of people just coming out to do vex voting. And say, okay, you know what? We're coming out to vote. Something must change. So
protest vote.
Protest vote. So it could go
either way.
Honestly, it could go either way. it's too soon to tell, and I think it would be quite presumptuous for us to say that, okay, maybe it will go this particular way. But I mean, for some people, because I mean, you've had to queue for fuel for like 3 days straight, had to queue for money. It's election day. Nobody just say, let me sit down in my house and be looking at analysis on
This is the only day I have to rest.
This is the only day I have to rest. Just let me be looking at this thing on TVC. Let's just... So that could happen. And then some people just say, okay, you know what? With this anger I'm feeling, let me just go to the polls and register my displeasure by doing that. So it could go either way.
Right. Now, there's the aspect of the unbanked. We have seen persons frustrated saying, my money.
Yes.
I'm fighting to get my money. Now, this aspect of trust for the system, how much impact do you see this whole situation going to impact on trust for the banking or the commercial bank system, and how we can get in the buy-in of the unbanked to also trust the system? Because if we are saying, I cannot get my money as it is, so why tell me to perhaps get an account, open an account? Is it a must for me to even put my money in an account as it stands?
So this is it. Regarding trust and systems of government in Nigeria, being in the same sentence has always been an anomaly. And we discussed that here time and time again, because one, they haven't, I don't know, maybe it's part of the objective, but they always make sure that they widen that gulf of mistrust between them and the people. I don't know why that is. Because, I mean, you just talked about the unbanked, and I was going to touch them as well. Because at this point, the unbanked now will realize that, okay, you know what? The money I'm keeping under my mattress, they said we should go and change it. No problem. I'll go through this process. I'll change it. I'm not going to change the currency maybe for another decade. I'll go back to putting your new Naira note under my mattress again. Is that what you want? Is it about opening an account? I'll open the account and not run it. Is that what you want? Because the question is, if I have to go through this stress to access my money, why am I coming to put it in the bank?
Yeah.
One, how much interest are the banks even giving me anyway?
Right.
There are certain banks that the way they will deduct your money, your head will spin.
Yeah.
So why am I putting my money in the banks anyway? Let me put it in a wooden box in my house.
Colo.
In a colo
in
box.
Colo box, or put it under my mattress and make sure that my burglar proof is well reinforced. So yes, these are part of the...
So does it defeat the
issue.
process or the essence for why this was put in place in the first place, where the CBN is saying, I want to take back some monies that were out there? Though it says it has mopped up about 75% of that, but now people are seeing the difficulty, the challenge in accessing their monies. And then there are those who are still going to stash and say, well, I've gotten the new notes, I can keep it. Do you think it's defeating the process in the first place?
The objective
Yeah.
of mopping up money, it may not defeat it. Because like I said, you already have old notes under your mattress. You don't want it to be worthless. So you take it to the bank to have it changed eventually. So they mopped up what they wanted to mop up, right? You've given them their money, no problem. You want to mop it, mop it. But moving forward, after the mopping up, doing business with the banks, that is the second phase of the objective. Will people maintain that relationship with the banks if they feel they don't have to? I don't think so. Because for some people that aren't, like the unbanked, like we said, that aren't very familiar with how the banking system works, as far as they're concerned, this is how banking is every day. And then they will say, so I left my village, my stress, to come to town where people make noise, have a lot of traffic, have a lot of noise. I'll take the money I want to take, put it back under my bed. So moving forward, so the phase 2 of this exercise may be defeated, but the phase 1 of mopping up cash, it will be mopped up, because nobody wants the money in their hands to go worthless or to go bad. There's no reason to have that. So give them their money, get the new notes, and some people go back to stashing it back under their beds.
All right. We have to leave the conversation now, but we must thank you, strategy consultant Dikpo Iwole.